Welcome to another edition of Ask the AD. Brian Smoller with the Director of Athletics, Gene Taylor. We're glad you could join us as we try to answer some of the burning questions from K-State fans over the last few weeks. Been about a month since we did that. We had a lot of great questions this week. Didn't get all of them into this week's show, but we'll do our best to answer as many as we can.
Seems like it's been longer than a month, but maybe it's just the way the football season has gone so fast so far.
It has been, and now we're already in the throes of basketball. Yeah. Football season is rolling along. Of course, we all know the Cats are headed to a bowl, which is great. Buy your bowl tickets now. That's our obligatory plug. Cats just coming off a tough one, though, against West Virginia this last week.
Yeah, tough loss to West Virginia, but a really great day. We obviously were able to celebrate Coach Snyder and part of the 150th anniversary of college football, and really nice celebration for Coach Snyder and his family. And one of the things we did is obviously we went to the Cats logo, and it caused some question by some of our fans. And a lot of them kind of put it back to an era that wasn't the most successful, but it was an opportunity for us to put a new logo out there, or kind of a regeneration of a logo, which had a lot of success. I mean, it was very well received by recruits and by our fans. We had sold a lot of apparel. And one of the things that I probably should have clarified and early on was we are not replacing the Power Cat with Cats. It's just an alternate logo. And one of the things we probably could have done a better job is when we introduced the logo, we showed a video of the Power Cat being ripped off. Some people felt that was, not the best way to present it, and felt that sometimes it might have been a little disrespectful to Coach Snyder. And that's not what we wanted to do, but understanding that the Power Cat is who we are, who we want to be. So we apologize to anybody that certainly was upset, but it was successful. We did have a lot of folks, recruits bought into it, and whether we'll see it again, I don't know. But the Power Cat is who we are, and we'll continue to use that as our main mark.
Yeah, and I had a former football player that played during a time here where we didn't win a whole lot of games. It said in some respects it also helped remind people that there were players that put in a lot of blood, sweat, and tears.
Absolutely.
That they didn't win a lot of games but are still valuable.
That were representing that logo at the time. And we're actually part of Coach Snyder's, when he first got here in 1989.
All right, so as we transition from that, we transition into our questions. And speaking of football, plenty of questions this week about football facilities. We get to our first question, which comes from Twitter. And actually, this is in general because football is so much tied into the Big 12. It's a Big 12 conference. This question hasn't been asked in a while.
Yeah.
It's one that comes up every now and then, but this one was just from Colby Nichols, 416. It asks, are there plans for expansion of the Big 12 or anybody leaving the conference?
Well, I can tell you that in the meetings I sit in with the ADs and the presidents and chancellor, we're a very tight conference right now. The presidents are all on the same page. Our athletic directors are on the same page. We have not talked about conference expansion. I've not heard of anybody even contemplating moving. We're always talking about what's next for the conference, whether it's a TV rights or whether it's whatever the case may be, scheduling. It's really a bunch of everybody on the same page trying to move the conference forward. And we feel we're really strong as the 10 of us together. And adding to that right now, we just don't think is the best move for the Big 12 Conference.
And everybody seems to be unified on that front. Big 12 Now and ESPN Plus is a big part of that, as everyone tries to congregate their third-tier rights.
Yep.
And we see some hiccups early with that, but thank you for all your patience as we move through it.
Thank you. We're working it.
Much better.
He's working it.
Yeah, men's basketball game last night was much better, and we continue to take steps forward there. All right, so the next question is coming from The Real You and I, talking about the new indoor football practice field taking up parking on the east side, which we have talked about before.
Right.
He asked if there's plans to expand asphalt parking into other areas to take over for that.
Yeah, we're still, probably a couple of years away from that becoming a reality just due to fundraising. We're starting the South End Zone project this year, just down the road here in a couple of months. But in terms of how we address it, when we do get there, we are looking at other opportunities for expanded parking areas, expanded lots that we currently don't run that we might be able to take over and be a part of it. Areas that, depending on where we put the indoor football practice facility, could we create some new areas? So yeah, all that's being looked at because we know we'll be adjusting some parking, and we want to make sure that nobody loses any opportunity to park close to where they are now.
I think it's something you said in there is really good to remind people that the master plan facility that was revealed a while ago is not set in stone. It's not something that's locked in from here to forward. In fact, as we go to our next question, which asks about the construction affecting the 2020 season, it seemed to be a misperception that was out there, was that the indoor football facility is coming next season.
Yeah, the indoor football facility won't affect it. Now, we will have construction during the course of next football season 2020 for the south end zone, parking should not be affected, but there will be some entries and exits, and as construction is good, you'll see construction going on in between the games, and on Saturday you'll walk in and there'll be steel girders up, and so, but it should not affect parking for 2020.
And as we said before, the plans change as you try and move forward. Try and stay true to what you've designed.
You never know where the turn's going to come at you.
Last thing about the East Side on football was, this comes from K-Stater 91. I've heard this a couple of times in the past, and it was in reference to some of our fans who are the more experienced, shall we say, of our fan base, that want to be able to get up and down to the press level or to the view level over on the East Side, asking about an elevator or ramps or escalators.
That's a great question. I actually had a fan call me this week and was pretty frustrated about that. The group that they sit with, they had a couple of folks that have been around a long time and have a difficulty getting up, and so that's something we need to look at. I don't know, escalators are not currently in any of our plans. Could they be? Absolutely. Could we readjust how we handle the elevators during the operation? I think those are some initial things we'll look at to give priority to to some of our older fans and maybe handicapped fans, that that elevator is always going to go to the view level first, but we have to. Those are some operational things we can at least address early, but then in terms of escalators, not yet, but you never know.
Yeah, absolutely. Great suggestion and great question. Speaking of suggestion, our next question is kind of a long one. It comes from Brian Hampton, who asked this question on Facebook, asking about a parking garage on the east side of Bramlage. I suppose it could be on the east or west side. He even went as far as to talk about a covered walk or a warm way to get in from that parking garage to Bramlage being a moneymaker. What's your thoughts on this?
Again, nothing that we've really looked at. Parking garages are very expensive. Those that have built them know that my understanding is the revenue doesn't really pay it off as quickly as people would think, because they are very expensive per stall to build. Nothing we've looked at, but are there some areas that potentially, as the university looks at parking opportunities, that we could tie together? Maybe so, but nothing within the confines of our master plan that we're currently looking at.
I know a covered walk always seems to come up when you talk with the basketball players about going from the Ice Family Basketball Center into Bramlage. That usually comes up about February or January.
No, we actually did look at that. It is connecting Bramlage to the ice basketball facility as we look for future opportunities to create better opportunities within Bramlage. That is looked at. It's a pretty expensive option, though, so if it's on there, it may come later.
Our last question today comes from Twitter, and this is a conversation topic that could take an entire show if we wanted it to, but it's about the NCAA allowing players to make money off their likeness. And this is the question is ended with, what challenges do you see associated with that new law? I should add that it's not necessarily a law in Kansas. It's a law in some states. It's a rule that may be adopted by the NCAA, but your thoughts?
Brian, it's really complicated and convoluted, as you said, and right now the California law that he's referencing doesn't come online until 2023. In the meantime, we think there's about 23 or 24 states that are looking to put a law in effect effective 2020. So name, image, and likeness is an opportunity that student athletes might have to profit off of their ability either as a student athlete, or maybe in an area they have a talent, whether they're a musician or an artist, that they could profit off of in some way, shape, or form. It gets really complex. It becomes an equitable thing. It becomes a recruiting thing. And how do you make it fair between states and schools? And there's so many things to talk about. But the question is, we need to move quickly in the NCAA. We need to move quickly as an institution, because if we don't come up with something, then we're going to have 50 states with 50 different laws, and that's not what we can have, because then it gets way more difficult to recruit and be the collegiate model of which we are.
The most encouraging part that most recently came out of an NCAA group that got together was that it seemed like everyone agreed that something had to be done. And I know it was framed in a way that, California's law forced that action, but it seemed like that conversation had already been started.
It's been started for a while, and if you think back of some of the things we moved when we went to the autonomy area of the NCAA legislation, which means we, the power of five, have an opportunity to pass legislation that doesn't have to be for everybody else. We now feed athletes whenever we want. We have them the cost of attendance. Full scholarship student athletes get anywhere from additional $400 to $600 a month at various places around the country on top of their tuition fees. So they're pretty well taken care of. But can we do more? That's what we're looking at. And how do we take care of it for all sports, not just a football and basketball thing?
Right, because that's where that really gets into the nitty-gritty, is the sports beyond. on the two big revenue sports. Appreciate the time.
Thank you very much. Appreciate everybody. And go Cats. Looking forward to a lot of exciting rest of the fall and winter season.
Absolutely. We'll have basketball, plenty of home games through the rest of November and into December, certainly. And then, of course, the holiday season will be punctuated with a bowl game this year for the Wildcats. Keep those questions coming. Gene will try and reach out when he can on Twitter to some specific ones we didn't get to. We'll try and get to the next batch in the month of December. For Gene Taylor, Director of Athletics, for Preston Kerner, who puts these things together, Cody Easern as well, Taylor Corley, I'm Brian Smoller. Thank you for watching Ask the AD.